They say racism is dying, but tell that to the woman who just got called trash for existing in the wrong skin. They say justice is blind, but in this country, justice squints, checks your color, and decides how to treat you. The train station smelled of oil, metal, and impatience. People hurried with their bags, their eyes glued to schedules, not each other. Yet in the corner where the sunlight poured in, time was about to stop. Officer Grady was having a bad morning. He always did. Too many years in the uniform had calcified his bitterness, like plaque hardening around a rotten tooth. He liked to think he was protecting the city, but truth be told, he was protecting his pride, keeping himself inflated by crushing someone else. That morning, his eyes caught her, a black woman standing by the ticket machine, calm, composed, adjusting the strap of her leather bag. He saw no senator, no leader, no human, even only a target to remind himself he had power. "Hey you," he barked, the sound cutting through the chatter of travelers. Heads turned, but most quickly looked away. It wasn't their business. "Got ID? Don't look at me like that. People like you always loiter around here." She raised her eyes slowly, steady and unshaken, though the sting of his words cut deep. For decades she had worn insults like invisible bruises, the kind the world couldn't see but her soul could never forget. Still, this one was different. She had just been elected, just days ago, as the youngest black female senator in the state's history. No one here knew. Not yet. And maybe that was why the moment burned hotter, because here she was, still seen as nothing but a problem, still fighting the same battle her grandmother once fought when she had to sit at the back of the bus. "I don't need to show you anything," she said evenly. Her voice was low, calm, but carried an edge that silenced the nearby murmur. Grady smirked, stepping closer, his boots loud on the tile. "Oh, you don't? See, that's the thing. People like you always think the rules don't apply. But guess what, sweetheart, they do. Around here, you show respect, or you get dragged out." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A young man with glasses fumbled to unlock his phone camera. A mother pulled her daughter closer, whispering something about "don't stare." The senator's jaw tightened. She could feel her pulse pounding at her temples. But she had lived long enough to know that rage, if unleashed, would be weaponized against her. Grady's voice grew louder, dripping with mockery. "You think just because you're dressed nice, you're better than the rest? That suit doesn't change what you are." The words struck like stones, but she refused to flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, her face inches from his, her eyes unwavering. "What am I, officer?" she asked. The air hung heavy, silence pressing against every ear. Even the distant rumble of trains seemed to pause. His lips curled. "You know damn well." For a moment, nothing moved. And then her phone rang. The sharp vibration broke the tension. She glanced down briefly, saw the name of her campaign manager flashing. She let it ring, her gaze never leaving Grady's face. "You have no idea who you're talking to," she said quietly, each word deliberate, like a blade being drawn from its sheath. He laughed, dismissive, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to. Some nobody who thinks she's too good for the law. Let me tell you something, lady. In this country, respect is earned, not demanded. And you ain't earned a damn thing." Her chest tightened, but not with fear. With fire. The kind passed down from generations who endured chains, whips, and silence. She thought of her grandmother's cracked hands, her mother's weary eyes, her own campaign nights knocking on doors that slammed shut when they saw her face. And then she thought of the victory speech just 3 nights ago, when a crowd roared her name under the same flag Officer Grady claimed to serve. She took a breath. "Officer," she said, her voice steady, almost gentle, "I suggest you step back. Because in about 5 seconds, you're going to wish you had treated me with respect." A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the crowd. Some thought she was bluffing. Some hoped she wasn't. Grady narrowed his eyes. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning," she replied. And then she pulled out her wallet. The crowd leaned in, curious, expectant. Out came not an ID card, but a crisp, newly issued badge embossed with the seal of the United States Senate. She held it up, high enough for everyone to see, her hand trembling not with fear, but with righteous anger. Gasps erupted. The young man filming whispered, "Oh my God." Grady froze. His face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time that day, he was silent. The golden sunlight hit her badge, scattering across the station like a beacon. In that glow, she no longer looked like a target. She looked like the future, and every eye in that station knew it. The silence in the station cracked like glass under pressure. People's eyes darted from the gleaming Senate badge to Officer Grady's frozen face. For a split second, it was as though the world had reversed. The man who moments earlier strutted with arrogant authority now looked like a schoolboy caught cheating on an exam. But the senator, her hand still steady, did not revel in his humiliation. Instead, her gaze swept over the crowd. Every stranger watching wasn't just an onlooker. They were witnesses. And witnesses meant truth could no longer be buried under excuses. She lowered the badge slowly, tucking it back into her wallet. But the image had already seared itself into every camera, every memory. The young man filming whispered to his phone, "Breaking news, y'all. You're not going to believe this." His voice trembled with excitement, but the woman standing in the center felt no thrill. She felt the heavy weight of history pressing against her ribs. This wasn't about catching a bigot in the act. This was about showing the world that power without justice is just cruelty in uniform. Officer Grady tried to recover, his lips fumbling over words. "You didn't know? I was just doing my job, ma'am. Just following protocol." His tone softened, but it was too late. The poison had already dripped from his tongue, and everyone had heard it. "Protocol doesn't include insults," she said sharply. "Protocol doesn't mean assuming the worst about someone because of the color of their skin. Protocol is supposed to mean serving the people, all people, not just the ones who look like you." He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. The station's loudspeaker announced the arrival of the next train, but no one moved. The story unfolding here was louder than any schedule. She took a step closer, lowering her voice just enough so that only he could hear. "You think I'm angry because you disrespected me. But no. I'm angry because you disrespected every little girl who looks like me, every boy who will grow up believing men like you decide whether he's safe or not. I'm angry because my grandmother's prayers and my mother's tears weren't enough to end this cycle, and here we are again, in 2025, still bleeding the same wound." Grady's eyes flickered. Shame, fear, or simply annoyance that his authority had slipped. It didn't matter. What mattered was what came next. And what came next was not his choice anymore. From the edge of the crowd, a voice rang out. Senator Williams." Cameras lifted, microphones appeared as if conjured from thin air. Reporters who had been chasing rumors of her first public commute after the election now realized fate had delivered them a story far bigger. "Did he know who you were? Did he target you because of race? How do you respond to the officer's accusations?" The questions flew like arrows. Senator Williams drew a breath. She had been a lawyer before this, had battled in courtrooms where words were sharper than knives. She knew the power of a statement delivered at the right moment. But she also knew that words could be twisted, used against her. This wasn't just about her dignity. It was about the dignity of millions. She turned back to Grady. "You wanted to remind me of my place. You did. And my place is here, standing in front of the people, holding you accountable. My place is in the Senate chambers, drafting laws that will make sure men like you remember what your badge is supposed to stand for." The crowd erupted, not with laughter, not with pity, but with applause. Raw, cathartic, almost rebellious applause. For years they had walked past moments of injustice, too afraid to intervene. But now, here was a woman refusing to shrink, refusing to be silenced. Grady tried to speak again, but the noise drowned him out. He looked small, swallowed by the very crowd that once cowered under his authority. Yet even as victory shimmered in the golden sunlight, Senator Williams felt a deeper ache. She thought of her father, a man who had been stopped by police so many times he eventually drove only during the day, just to be safe. He never lived to see this moment. And maybe that was why, as cameras closed in, her eyes burned with unshed tears. Not for herself, for him. For every ancestor whose bones were buried beneath broken promises. The reporters pressed forward. "Senator, will you be filing a complaint? Should this officer be suspended?" She raised a hand, silencing them. Her voice came calm, deliberate. "This is not about one officer. This is about a system that teaches men like him that authority means domination, not service. A system that lets prejudice wear a uniform and call it protection. I don't want suspension. I want reform. I want accountability. I want training, oversight, and transparency. And I want it now. The applause thundered louder. People who had never spoken of politics suddenly felt the urgency of her words pulsing in their veins. Some even cried. In that station, under beams of sunlight cutting through dust and glass, hope felt tangible. But Grady's jaw tightened. He wasn't ready to be the villain in this story. "You're twisting this," he muttered, his voice trembling. "You set me up. You wanted this to happen." She turned back slowly, meeting his gaze. "Do you think I wanted to be humiliated this morning? Do you think I wanted to be insulted in front of strangers? No. But the truth has a way of showing itself, officer. Even when people try to bury it." The crowd roared again, some chanting her name. "Williams! Williams! Williams!" But inside, she wasn't celebrating. She was bracing. Because she knew this moment, captured on a dozen phones and broadcast within minutes, would ignite a storm. Her opponents would call her dramatic. Her supporters would call her heroic. And in the middle, the fragile thread of truth risked being pulled apart. As the train screeched to a halt, doors sliding open with mechanical sighs, she made her decision. She turned to the cameras one last time. "Remember this moment. Not because of who I am, but because of what it shows. That racism is alive, even in plain sight. And if we don't confront it head-on, it will keep poisoning us, one encounter at a time." She stepped onto the train. The crowd surged behind, some following, some lingering, all buzzing with the electricity of witnessing history. Officer Grady remained rooted to the floor, his hands twitching at his belt, his pride in ruins. But the senator didn't look back. For her, the story wasn't about him anymore. It was about the movement now unleashed. On the train, as the doors closed, she finally exhaled. The rhythmic clatter of wheels on track soothed her pounding heart. Across the aisle, a little black girl stared at her wide-eyed, clutching a Barbie doll with mismatched clothes. Their eyes met. The girl whispered, almost afraid, "Are you really a senator?" Senator Williams smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart, I am." The girl's face lit up, brighter than the sun streaking through the windows. She turned to her mother, whispering, "See? We can be anything." The mother nodded, tears brimming, mouthing a silent thank you. And in that fleeting exchange, the senator felt something stronger than victory, purpose. But purpose was heavy. It meant the fight wasn't over. It meant more confrontations, more battles in halls where laws were written and rewritten. It meant standing firm when the world wanted her bent. Her phone buzzed again this time she answered. "Angela." Her campaign manager's voice came urgent. "We've got a situation. The video's already viral. News outlets are calling nonstop. We need to craft a statement before your opponents spin this." Williams glanced at the little girl again. She lowered her voice. "We don't need to spin the truth. The truth is enough. Angela, listen to me. They're going to paint you as an angry black woman. They'll say you disrespected law enforcement, that you escalated the situation." Her lips pressed tight. That tired narrative again. Angry, aggressive, unfit. The chains of stereotype clinking like shackles, even now. But she wouldn't let fear dictate her steps. "Let them talk," she said firmly. "I'm not here to fit their script. I'm here to write a new one." The train roared forward, the city blurring past the windows, as Senator Angela Williams prepared herself not just for the fight ahead in Washington, but for the storm about to rage across America once this story hit every screen. The video spread like wildfire. By the time Senator Angela Williams stepped off the train in Washington, her phone was vibrating like a living thing, drowning in calls, texts, and alerts. Overnight, she had become the face of a national reckoning. Cable news ran the clip on loop, social media split into furious debates, and across the country, living rooms buzzed with conversations that had been buried for too long. At the Senate building, reporters swarmed the steps, their microphones thrust forward like spears. "Senator, what reforms will you propose? Do you demand the officer's resignation? Are you making this personal?" She lifted her chin, exhaustion hidden beneath the armor of dignity. "This was never about one officer," she repeated firmly, "but about a system that must change. And I intend to fight for that change from this chamber." Inside, the marble halls echoed with whispers. Colleagues who once greeted her with polite indifference now glanced with caution, calculating how close to stand, how much to associate. Some congratulated her, their handshakes stiff, their smiles rehearsed. Others avoided her entirely. The system didn't like disruption, and Angela Williams had just disrupted the entire nation. But in her private office, behind a heavy oak door, she allowed the mask to slip. She sank into her chair, pressing her palms against her temples. The weight of expectation pressed on her shoulders. Millions now looked to her not just as a senator, but as a symbol. Symbols don't get to stumble. Symbols don't get to rest. Her aide, a young Latina named Marisol, entered with a stack of folders. "Senator, we've got to get ahead of this. Civil rights groups are reaching out. Unions want statements. The police association is already condemning you for disrespecting law enforcement." Angela's eyes flickered. "Disrespecting? By standing my ground. That's how they spin it," Marisol said gently. "We need to decide whether to fight fire with fire or take the high road." Angela leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She thought of her father Ogden of the night he came home late, shirt torn, eyes hollow, after being thrown against a patrol car for fitting a description. He had told her, "Don't waste your life hating them, baby. Change the laws that protect them." Now here she was, with the power to do just that. That night, as city lights flickered outside her window, Angela remembered a different time. She was 15, sitting in a classroom where history books glossed over slavery in 3 pages, but lingered on European kings for entire chapters. She had raised her hand and asked why. The teacher sighed, muttering, "Because that's just not the focus." Her classmate snickered. She remembered how small she felt that day, how invisible. But invisibility had become fuel. Every dismissal, every insult, every door slammed had sharpened her resolve. And yet, now that she had finally been seen, she wondered, was it her or the scandal people saw? Did they see Angela Williams, the woman, or just the senator who clashed with a cop? The next morning, her question was answered. The Senate chamber buzzed with anticipation. On the agenda, a hearing on police accountability, hastily scheduled after her video went viral. She entered the chamber with her head high, but her stomach knotted. The air was thick with tension, like a courtroom before a verdict. The chairman, an older white senator named Whitmore, banged his gavel. "Order. Today we address public concerns regarding law enforcement practices, sparked by a recent incident involving our colleague, Senator Williams." His tone carried the weight of both sympathy and skepticism. All eyes turned to her. She rose slowly, her hands gripping the edge of the desk. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did not ask for that incident to define me. But if it can shine light on the rot still festering in our system, then let's not waste this moment." Gasps rippled. Cameras zoomed in. Across the nation, millions watched live. She continued, her voice steady but burning. "When I was insulted at that station, I did not just hear words aimed at me. I heard echoes of centuries. I heard chains rattling. I heard fire hoses turned on children. I heard gunshots in dark alleys where no cameras reach. And I say to you now enough." Her speech rolled like thunder. She laid out proposals: mandatory bias training, independent oversight boards, body cameras with real accountability, and a federal commission to investigate racial profiling. Some senators nodded, others frowned, scribbling notes. Then came the rebuttal. Senator Holt, a conservative stalwart, leaned forward with a smirk. "With all due respect, Senator Williams, are you not letting a personal incident cloud your judgment? Our police officers put their lives on the line daily. To paint them as villains over one regrettable misunderstanding, well, isn't that divisive?" Angela's jaw tightened. Divisive is pretending that what happened to me is an isolated incident. Divisive is ignoring the lived reality of millions of Americans who can't walk down the street without being treated like suspects. Don't tell me to stay quiet for unity's sake. Silence is not unity, it is complicity. The chamber stirred. Holt bristled. "So what you're saying is, every officer is racist? That's outrageous." Angela's eyes locked on his. "No. What I'm saying is, every system that allows racism to flourish must be dismantled. If you can't tell the difference, maybe that's the problem." The room erupted in murmurs. Whitmore banged his gavel again. "Order. Order." But the spark had already caught. This was no longer a debate. It was a battle of truths, live-streamed into every household. Outside, crowds gathered with signs: "Justice now," "We stand with Williams," "End racist policing." Across the street, counter-protesters waved blue-striped flags, chanting, "Back the blue." Police stood between them, irony thick in the air. Angela watched from her office window that evening, exhaustion clawing at her bones. Marisol entered quietly. "Senator, the officer Grady's been suspended pending investigation. The police union is furious. They're calling you a liar, saying you provoked him." Angela closed her eyes. She had expected this. She had lived long enough to know the truth was never enough. "Then we'll let the people decide," she whispered. That night, she received an email. No name, just words. "My son was killed in a traffic stop. They said he reached for something. He didn't. Thank you for speaking the truth. Don't stop." Tears blurred her vision. For every voice that attacked her, there were dozens pleading for her to keep going. She couldn't stop. Not now. The next week, she held a town hall meeting. The auditorium overflowed with people, some cheering, some heckling. On stage, she faced them all. "I didn't run for Senate to be comfortable. I ran because too many of us aren't. And until every child in this country can walk without fear of being judged by their skin, I will not rest." A heckler shouted, "Go back where you came from." The crowd gasped. Angela leaned into the microphone. "I came from here, from this soil, from ancestors who built this country with their bare hands while being told they didn't belong. I'm not going back anywhere. I'm going forward, and you're welcome to come with me." The applause drowned out the heckler. And yet, even as the movement grew, so did the backlash. Headlines twisted her words. Pundits sneered about identity politics. Anonymous threats slipped into her mailbox. Each night she returned home, locked her doors, and prayed not for safety, but for strength. One evening, Marisol brought her news. "Senator, Grady wants to meet. He says he has something to say." Angela froze. Face to face with the man who humiliated her, the thought made her stomach churn. But then she thought of the little girl on the train, of her father's words, of the email from the grieving mother. Sometimes the most dangerous battles were the ones that demanded listening, not shouting. "Set it up," she said quietly. The meeting was arranged in a neutral location, a quiet community center room. No cameras, no crowd, just the two of them across a table. Grady entered first, his uniform gone, replaced with civilian clothes that hung awkwardly on his frame. He looked smaller, deflated. Angela sat, her posture straight, her gaze steady. He cleared his throat. "I didn't know who you were." If I had, she cut him off. "That's the problem. You shouldn't have to know who I am to treat me with respect." Silence stretched. He fumbled with his hands. "I've been on the force 20 years. We're trained to be suspicious, to assume the worst. I didn't realize how much of that suspicion was aimed at people like you. I'm not proud of what I said." Angela studied him. His words were clumsy, but the crack in his armor was real. "Do you know how many times I've heard men like you say that? I didn't realize. My people have paid with blood for your realizations. Apologies don't bring back lives." His eyes dropped. "Then what do you want from me?" She leaned forward. "Not excuses. Change. Use your voice inside the force. Call out the bias when you see it. Don't wait until a senator humiliates you in public. Do it when no one's watching." For the first time, his eyes met hers not with defiance, but with something like humility. He nodded slowly. Angela rose, collecting her coat. "This isn't about you and me anymore. It's about whether the next generation has to keep fighting the same battle. I refuse to let them." As she walked out into the evening light, golden rays painted the sky. For the first time since that morning at the train station, she felt not just the fire of anger, but the quiet strength of purpose. The fight was far from over. But now, it wasn't hers alone. A movement had begun. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Angela Williams found herself on the front page of every major paper, her face plastered on television screens, her name debated in bars, classrooms, and kitchen tables across America. For some, she was a hero. For others, a threat. But for Angela, she was simply a woman who refused to be silent. Congressional hearings intensified. Every time she spoke, the chamber shifted. Allies leaned in, opponents stiffened. Her proposals for reform met resistance at every turn, especially from those who claimed to defend law and order. Yet behind closed doors, even some skeptics admitted the truth. The nation had been shaken, and ignoring it was no longer an option. One night, long after the lights in the Capitol had dimmed, Angela stood alone in the rotunda. The statues of past leaders loomed above her, cold marble reminders of history written mostly by white men. She whispered to herself, "We are not done rewriting." Her phone buzzed. It was Marisol. "Senator, tomorrow's the big vote. The Police Accountability Act is on the floor. We're short by 2 votes. Holt is rallying his side hard against it. Angela closed her eyes. She had given everything, her voice, her energy, her privacy. And yet, victory dangled just out of reach. She thought of the families who had written her, the children who looked up at her with hope. Failure was not an option. The next morning, the chamber filled to the brim. The galleries overflowed with citizens, activists, and journalists. Tension coiled in the air. Whitmore banged his gavel. The Senate will come to order. Angela rose. Every eye turned. Colleagues, she began, today we decide what kind of country we want to be. Will we cling to the comfort of denial, or will we confront the hard truth staring us in the face? I was humiliated in a train station, not because of my actions, but because of my skin. That humiliation is not mine alone. It is shared by millions of Americans who walk through life carrying suspicion they did not earn. This vote is not about punishing police. It is about protecting dignity. It is about ensuring that authority serves, not scars. Her words echoed, heavy and sharp. Across the aisle, Holt rose with a smirk. With all due respect, Senator Williams, I fear you're turning personal grievance into national policy. Our brave officers deserve support, not scorn. This bill is reckless and unnecessary. Angela turned to him, her gaze unflinching. What's reckless is allowing injustice to go unchecked. What's unnecessary is another funeral, another mother burying her child, because we chose cowardice over courage. The chamber stirred. Senators whispered, weighing not just politics but conscience. The roll call began. Yes. No, no, yes. Each word dropped like a drumbeat. The tally climbed too close to call. Angela's palms were slick with sweat, though her face remained composed. The final votes came down to 2 moderates, wavering under the weight of history. One leaned into the microphone. Yes. A gasp rippled. The other paused, eyes flicking between Holt's glare and Angela's steady gaze. Time seemed to freeze. Then, yes. Applause erupted. The bill passed. For the first time in decades, sweeping police reform was on its way to becoming law. Angela's chest tightened, not with triumph, but with relief so deep it made her knees weak. She had carried generations into that chamber, and generations had just been heard. Outside, the crowd erupted into chants. Justice now. Justice now. Strangers hugged. Tears flowed. And in the center of it all, Angela stood, her face lifted to the sky, golden sunlight breaking through clouds as though blessing the moment. But victory did not erase scars. That evening, as she returned home, she found an envelope slipped under her door. No return address. Inside, a crude drawing of a noose, and 3 words scrawled in black ink. You don't belong. Her hand trembled. Fear prickled her skin, but she refused to let it root in her soul. She placed the note in a drawer, whispered a prayer, and sat at her desk. For every threat, there were thousands of voices telling her to keep going. She would not betray them. Days later, she returned to the very train station where it all began. The air smelled the same metal and oil, faint coffee from the kiosk. But the energy was different. Crowds gathered, not to hurry past, but to witness. Children held signs. Thank you, Senator. Elderly women clasped her hands, whispering blessings. Even strangers who had once ignored injustice now cheered her courage. She stepped onto the platform, the spot where Grady had confronted her. The sunlight streamed through the glass roof again, warm and golden, washing the space in a glow that felt almost holy. She lifted a microphone, her voice carrying through the station. This is where I was told I didn't belong, where I was reduced to a stereotype. But look around now. We belong. We always have. And no one will take that away again. The crowd roared. Yet amidst the cheers, she saw him, Grady, standing at the edge, no uniform, just a man among the crowd. Their eyes met. He didn't speak, didn't approach. But he nodded, once, a gesture of something unspoken acknowledgement, perhaps even respect. Angela returned the nod. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Later that evening, she sat in her office, the city glowing outside her window. Marisol entered quietly. Senator, your approval ratings are soaring. People are calling this the start of a new era. Angela smiled faintly. Let's hope it's more than numbers. Let's hope it's real change. She turned back to her papers, drafting new proposals, her pen scratching against the page. The fight was not over, it might never be. But for the first time, she felt the tide had shifted. Not because of her alone, but because people were finally standing together. In her heart, she heard her father's voice. Change the laws that protect them. And she whispered back, I'm trying, Daddy. We're getting there. The story of that morning at the train station would be told for years. Some would remember the humiliation. Others, the confrontation. But Angela Williams knew the truth. It wasn't about a cop or a senator. It was about a country choosing whether to cling to its shadows or step into the light. And on that day, under golden beams of sunlight, America had taken one step closer to the light. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.